Good evening. Good evening. So excited today in New Earth Radio. We have a very special friend, an all-time friend. I know Joey Maillet for over 9 years, and he's bringing amazing information, great information that a lot of you might find it very, very interesting. And the purpose of this recording is to help a lot of the children, and he has a lot of information regarding trans and transgender, and he's really an expert. I mean, really an expert. And I'm so happy to invite you, Joey, to be here with us. And welcome to the show. I know you're in daytime and I'm in nighttime, supposedly, but it's a pre-recorded show. And excited to be here. Actually, Joey is here in the property and outside. So eventually you will see some goats walking behind him. So very nice to have you, Joey. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share my story and my knowledge on my personal experience, anyways, on all those great topics that we're about to talk about today.
Yes, and one of the things that we wanna say is that we have great respect for the LGBT community. Uh,
Definitely.
we have no judgment, no opinions on whatever any person can do with their physical body or their sexual orientation. We are all souls that come into the planet for an amazing experience in a physical body. So it doesn't matter what gender you took in this experience as a soul, a male or a female, or if you are LGBT, is no difference, no difference. We have great respect. Everyone is a spiritual being looking to have an experience on the earth, and there's many ways to explore the earth and whatever we want to bring into the earth as created beings, artists, theater, music, whatever, which many of the sensitive people do as healers, as artists, and all that. So, Joey, again, welcome. So, I'll start you with a question. Who is Joey Maillet?
Well, Joey Maya is a soul in a body.
Yeah, right.
That's no, but to be if I am a I'm many things all in one, but really is I'm a soul that incarnated on this beautiful earth, and I'm here to experience life and to grow, and I have experienced many things, and that's all those aspects just make me. And as we go into this interview, you will get to know all those little parts of me that make a big puzzle into who I am.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Listen, before we start with the question, is Joey, I
Yeah.
just want to say that, Janice and I love you dearly. You're like a son for us. I mean, we know you. I know you for over 90 years, and Janice
Yes.
probably a little more than me.
Yes.
And we've seen your transformation, your process, and we are very happy that we have been part of your life and coming, putting this puzzle together of who you are
Yeah.
and
Yes,
supporting
you've
you.
really seen it.
Yeah, supporting you in many
Yeah.
ways.
Oh, yes.
So let me ask you, you were born as
A female. I was born as a female.
you were
Yes.
born as a female,
I
okay?
was born
So,
as a female,
mhm.
and
So
I lived as a female for 27 years.
for 27 years, wow.
27
So
years.
so what we see in this change of body parts and how you look right now, it took
Mhm.
you at 27 is when you decided to do this change, right?
Is when the physical transformation actually began, 2013. But
Okay.
at 24 is when I started to identify as transgender, as a trans male.
Okay. And when you were a child, where you were extremely sensitive, when you were a sensitive kid, you will say?
I was very, very sensitive. I was very sensitive, very yeah, it would cause a lot of confusion and anxiety because I was so sensitive to everything. But yes, very, very sensitive child.
Were you playful and extroverted, or you were more like sensitive and introverted?
I was actually I was very extroverted, but I was not. I wouldn't say very playful. I tended
Okay.
to be more drawn to adults than children. I mean, I did play with my cousins and friends like that, but
Mhm.
if I would had the choice, I was much more inclined to drawn to adults.
Okay. Did you like the older conversations more than the
Yes,
child conversations?
yes,
Do you consider yourself as a as an old soul, somebody with that have come into the earth many many times?
I do. I just I feel in my being that I am an old soul, definitely.
Hmm.
Um, I an old soul that still has a lot to learn, but I feel
Yes.
like I've been around the block a few times. Yeah.
Are we all? Are we all? We all have to learn so much, even if we
Oh,
are old
definitely.
souls. We all have.
Definitely.
We all have a whole bunch of bad mistakes, and we're
Oh
coming
yeah.
back, even if we're old souls, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So, as a child, you said you were more interested in talking to adults than kids. I mean, there's a difference in your first 5 years before you go to school, right? So,
Yeah.
maybe as a child before those going to school, where you were more inclined to be with adults or playful with other kids.
I was still more I don't feel like I was not your typical child for sure.
Okay, okay,
Um, I was definitely more inclined, even prior before school, I was more inclined to, of course, every child is childlike and do all these things, but I was definitely more interested in adults and adult things. I was more curious about that,
yeah,
their conversations and things like that, than the playfulness of child. Yeah.
okay. And when you started school, was that different? Socializing with other kids.
No, I mean I loved socializing with kids and everything, but it's just no, it was still the same. I was more honestly at school I was more prone to hanging out with wanting to be friends with the teachers and
Okay,
things like that. I was more really more inclined to adults than children.
okay. Did you
Yeah.
feel that you didn't belong in some sort of a way, that you were like an outsider, somebody that
Absolutely.
couldn't find his tribe, couldn't find belonging?
Yes, absolutely. Not so much as a child, but as I started getting around 10 years old and things like that, definitely. I uh
So,
I felt more uh lost, a little lost.
okay, so going into puberty was when things started to probably you were feeling that you were not fitting in with people.
Yes, and I hit puberty quite young actually. So
Okay, when was
for
that for
me,
you?
I it was very confusing and very I started puberty at 9 years old.
Really? So
So
you have your fair period at nine?
I had my first period at almost 10 years old. Yes. So I
Okay,
started developing and my body started changing quite young.
okay,
So I didn't, you know, the childhood part of me was very
very
short-lived.
very short. Wow,
Yes.
that's definitely an early start.
Yes. Yeah.
And because of how you felt, was it very hard to feel with other people? And did you sometimes were a little bit of a pleaser, or a little bit of trying to get people's attention for getting your love and all of that?
Yes, I was definitely, and this is something, one of my lessons that I'm still trying to learn is not being a people pleaser. I'm
Okay.
very much, and I've always been uh, a people pleaser. I just want to, because being sensitive, I tend to feel other people's emotions and I want to try to make people comfortable, and therefore it
Hmm.
tends to lead into people pleasing and
Yeah.
to not hurt other people's feelings
Right.
by feeling my own things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things that I've noticed through our friendship is that you are a being of light and you have a tremendous amount of light. In many instances, I have read, you know, I read your posts in Facebook, and here and there I find that, wow, you know, you surprise me with that deepness that you have in your approach for life. Do you think that being a sensitive kid and being is really a calling? You know, sometimes I see that many sensitive kids have the extrasensorial abilities of hearing the judgment from people, hearing the thoughts from other people, and that makes you move back because of that extrasensorial ability of kind of like going into your cocoon because you feel that people are judging you. Was that part of your experience?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're extra sensitive
Yeah,
and you express those things, it can be very misunderstood and seen as weakness.
yeah,
So, right. So sometimes I was being hard on myself, and I felt nobody understands, you know. So I felt it's easier to, if I just try to repress this, and
yeah,
I would and then trying to find ways to repress myself because I didn't understand why I was feeling this way.
right,
And you know, the mentality of most people, and it's because they don't understand, is try to get over it, you know, stop being so sensitive, you know.
right, right,
And then so it's kind of going inwards, going inwards, going inwards, because you just don't feel seen and understood. So the safest way is to go inwards. That's what I feel was my experience, anyways.
okay, okay. Um, do you think that this being an extra sensitive person is really a calling to go and look for deeper things and become a spiritual person instead of looking further out into some different options?
Yes, I feel that it's a gift,
Yeah,
and it is a calling because we are all given different gifts, and it just so happens that people who are sensitive for a reason.
right,
So I it needs to be utilized in proper ways, and I feel that it's very important for sensitive and spirituality they go hand in hand. So I feel
right.
it's definitely a calling. There's definitely a calling for spirituality in sensitive beings because we feel things that are unseen most of the time.
Hmm. Okay, thank you for answering that question because I think it's pretty helpful for parents at this point that they have their children a little bit confused and they don't feel that the kids fit anywhere, and they might have a spiritual calling more than a need to change their physical bodies to go into trying to see if they will fit somewhere because of
Yeah.
changing their bodies, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thing. It can be confusing, and um you try to fit in somewhere, and where you yeah, it let's just say it can be confusing, and you want to fit in somewhere, and you will find groups that will accept you,
Mm-hmm.
and uh that will
That
take
can,
you in, and maybe try to understand you, so it
that
can lead you on many different paths.
exactly. You can tap into a
Yeah,
good group of people that bring you in, and
yeah,
another group of people that bring you in, but they're not the good cats, and then you really
yeah.
go the wrong way. So listen, I wanted to ask about a little bit about your transformation. When did you
Sure.
notice that you were feeling different as your orientation as a child? I would imagine as a child, an adolescent, perhaps. When did that happen? When
Yeah,
was it that you
for
noticed?
me for me I started feeling, because yes, I was born a woman. And as a child, my attraction to women was very young. Probably 4 or 5 years old, I noticed my attraction to
Okay.
women.
Yeah.
But as far as questioning my gender,
Right.
that never really happened until later in my life. I never questioned my gender. Of
Mhm.
course, I always felt more masculine, that my energy was more masculine, but I
Okay.
had never questioned. There were, of course, some things about my body that I didn't necessarily feel comfortable, but nothing about changing my gender or things like that when I was became older in my life.
Do you think that a child, in the first 7 years, a child is pretty much in a trance? We know now by
Yes.
scientific studies that a child brain waves is usually in theta,
Yeah.
and the child in those first 7 years is kind of like in an altered state. Do you think that a child can emotionally understand that they're having a sexual attraction for somebody, be it that is for males or for female? Do you think that sexuality is already being defined in those years that you can say, well, I'm attracted to women? Is that really a sexual attraction, or is just I like this woman, or I feel more connected in this manner? Or you think that there's already a sexual attraction? Do you think that that's possible in those first 7 years?
I honestly, I'm not sure. I think that I mean, we are sexual beings. I mean, it's part of our of who we are as humans. But
Yeah.
I think that the innocence of children is taken away too soon, and I
Okay.
think that um, sexual attraction isn't necessarily something that is uh, there in the first 7 years. I think that
Okay.
it might infiltrated in things or pushed in some ways, but I
Yeah.
don't think that children,
Hmm.
yes, you can have this little crushes or things like this, but do I believe that there's sexual attraction, or is it normal for children to be thinking of sexual things? I
Hmm.
don't believe. I
You
don't
know,
believe
you
that
know,
early. No.
I know that children, for everybody, right? Maybe if you can tilt your microphone a little bit towards that side of the cabin, and no,
Inside of
more towards the inside, right? So yeah, there's
yes,
a little bit of sound there that is because of the wind.
yes,
Children are curious by nature, right?
yes, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
I remember as a kid playing with my friends, my cousins, playing doctor and all of that. And
Yes,
you want to explore, and that exploration it's kind of like very non-sexual. It's pretty much trying to
yes,
figure it out. So, what do you have? Oh, you don't have this, I have that kind of thing. Most people in the early childhood, they play and you're curious and they want to
yes,
figure it out what body parts you get kind of thing, right? But I
yes.
also know that when we are adolescents and we start developing our emotional body, which is when that start developing,
Hmm.
8 years old and further up, you then start developing an emotional body and you start looking back at your first 7 years and saying, well, when this happened when I was five, this happened when I was three, and maybe this was inappropriate, or maybe this was like that. So there's that emotional body that comes with a judgmental body, start
Yes,
going back and viewing some things like maybe I had a sexual attraction at that time.
yes,
So, but is that comes later in our life as we develop our psychology, our emotional feelings and emotions, and interpreting. This is what I felt when I was five. This is what I felt when I was seven.
yes, yes,
And you start like going back and evaluating and judging yourself,
yes.
criticizing yourself, right?
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Yes.
You know, so I have a question that might be an interesting question because this is a lot of the work that you and I did, and Janice and I did with you, and has to do with entities, right? Did you
Hmm.
ever notice a presence of a spirit or an entity during that time? For example, a voice that pushed you to do things that were unnatural, that were not, normal as a girl.
Yes, when I was younger, yes. I would say I I I don't want to go too much into it, but yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. There was some a presence, let's say,
Hmm.
that I
Yeah.
felt luring um
Okay.
around me. Yes.
And how old were you at that time when this happened?
Again, I was probably 5, 4, 5, 6. It hung out for many years.
Okay. Okay. Uh, were there any further on as an adolescent? Were there any? I mean, kind of like attacks, spiritual attacks at night that you will be in bed and, and something will just come into you with no consent. It will mess up with you.
Um, that was more towards my adolescence years, yes, but there
Okay.
was a gap between the difference between the thing that was what I was like 4, 5, 6, and then the one at nighttime without my
Yeah.
consent was more when I was a little bit older. So like
Okay.
13, 14, around that time. So there was
Eh,
a gap.
well, would you say that this was very different from self-exploration, and that you will feel like out of the blue something will be boom, just
Yes. Yes, it's different because it felt invasive.
psychic attack? Would you say spiritual attack kind of thing?
Yes, and now that I know the difference, like
Yeah.
I could feel almost the not the merger, but
Okay.
coming in
The coming into your body.
the coming into my body. Yes.
Yeah, and when that would happen, were thoughts that you have never experienced to do this or do that, that was kind of like
Yeah.
weird kind of thing.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
not that we want to talk about the weirdness of that kind of
Yeah.
experiences, but
Yeah.
you definitely felt that it was invasion of your private boundaries. That there was some level of possession there that
Yes.
will take over,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
want the situation that you were not looking for that will come in.
Yes. And it was torture because I knew the difference.
Hmm.
I would not go into it, but it was completely trying to convince me of things. And I would feel when it was not present, and then I would feel completely different. It was very obvious when
Yeah,
uh, it was present in my
yeah,
body or
yeah.
my surroundings. Yes.
But now that you have the understanding, it's easier for you to identify and know which was you wanted to
Absolutely.
self-explore and what was a total invasion.
Absolutely. And
But
I
at that time, did you notice the difference?
no,
You
no,
you wouldn't.
I had no idea.
You had no idea.
No, I thought I was screwed up,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it took I at that time I did not know what was wrong with me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
So this created a lot of confusion.
absolutely.
This entity will start it messing up with your head and putting thoughts, manipulating you, and all of that.
Yes, yes, uh which led to unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Okay, you want to
So
talk
it was
about
kind
that?
of a snowball effect. Yes, I um dabbled into drugs and alcohol quite young,
Uh,
and
how old were
I
you?
was the first time I had alcohol. Um, and of course, my parents had no idea about this, but I was 10 years
Yeah.
old is when I
Okay.
started consuming
Mm-hmm.
little bit, also smoking cigarettes and stuff like this, also at 10 years old.
Yeah.
All behind my parents' backs. They had no idea. But
Okay.
as I got older, it was more often until I became uh, fully addicted to drugs and alcohol
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
in my from high school to my late
Mm-hmm.
20s.
I would imagine that having this kind of experience with this uninvited entity that will take over, right, your body, will create a lot of confusion. And then, as you said, you didn't know it that was you or not. You felt that that was you, and you were all messed up,
Yes.
and that created a lot of coping mechanisms because you couldn't understand that.
Yes. I mean, I really thought it was me. You know,
Okay.
and unhealthy things like not just drugs and alcohol, but also um, self-harm. A lot of self-harm.
Okay.
I would cut myself a lot, burn my body, um,
Okay.
and suicide ideas and
Yes.
things like
Wow.
this. Yes, very
Wow.
much.
Wow. And that is really sad. I feel that that's really sad, Joey,
Mm.
that this happens. But I also have been tracking, because that's a line of work that we do on the healing process. We've been tracking this kind of entity, and it's very, it's awful. It is a very awful entity. Sometimes we remove entities of disincarnated spirits and they come out really easy, but these kind of entities are really the ones that inflict these kind of self cutting and hurting, suicidal thoughts. That's a very nasty entity.
Mhm.
I usually I consider that one not a disincarnated spirit or soul. I consider that like a demon. It's out of this world. It's out of this three-dimensional setup, and it inflicts a lot of people, a lot of adolescents. And to tell you the truth, it inflicts a lot of people that have a lot of light. So that's why you say that you are a spiritual being and you bring so much light into the earth, and you are actually sick by these negative entities to try they try to
Mm.
and put these negative thoughts on children and people like you that are sensitive and spiritual. I'm so
Yeah.
happy that you are bringing this into our conversation, because there's so many children that do that and they don't know why.
Oh,
It's,
oh yeah.
I see it as completely unnatural. I mean, nobody
Yeah.
will think about burning yourself and cutting
No.
to have this level of pleasure. To me, is demonic or entity induced by these entities that create this, and then it creates this incredible confusion on a child.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And really, this is an epidemic. There's so many children that are so confused and so lost, and they don't realize that this is entities, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It is. It's and people don't know the difference because when it starts so young, you become, and that's what they want. They believe that it's you, that you are the problem,
Yeah.
that you are messed up, and that, you know, so it's to find yourself, separate yourself from this is very hard, and it's to reverse the damage takes a long time and a lot of work, unfortunately.
That's right. And I really praise your what you've done in your life. I mean, I think the many things, who you are. I mean, I see you as a soul brother, and I see, and I'm so proud of you for the amount of work that you've done to rid yourself from these entities,
Yeah.
and go deeper into finding yourself and really getting the reins of who you are is
Yeah.
really admirable. I really
Yeah.
I'm honored to be part of your your friendship and
Yeah.
life and all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that you're bringing this into the program right now that we're talking about this. Um, you know, there's a question that I have in the LGBT community. I think we were talking this before. You were mentioned there's a lot of trauma response, and if you can expand a little bit on that and what it is, and
Sure.
okay,
Sure. Yeah. So, you know, we know that when people suffers any trauma, there's going to be different responses that they have. You know, let's say for somebody who has been sexually abused or have some sort of sexual trauma happen, there's many different routes that they can take. Sometimes it can manifest into hypersexualization, that they
Hmm.
become very promiscuous and things like
Right.
this. And other times they become repressed sexually, where they don't want anything to do with anything sexual. I I've been involved in the LGBT community, specifically the trans community, since about 2010,
Okay.
and I I started seeing somewhat of a pattern. I'm not saying that this is for every single scenario, but I'm just
Right.
stating what I'm experiencing and what I've observed being a part of it and myself going through the process.
Hmm.
Is I found a lot of my what we like to call trans brothers, or
Hmm.
people,
Yeah.
my friends that transition or were experiencing the same thing,
Yeah.
at a lot of similarities, and that was sexual trauma as children.
Okay.
So I didn't think too much about it in
Hmm.
the beginning, but as I started doing my own self work and finding myself in healing, I kind of found this interesting, that there is this one element that it's not for every single scenario, again, as I said, but
Hmm. Hmm.
it happens quite often that the people that I met, there was this component of sexual trauma in early childhood. And it made
Right.
me think that perhaps there's something, that confusion of your gender could be a
Right.
trauma response.
Right. Right.
It's, if let's say a girl was sexually abused by an older man, maybe
Yeah.
this, if I become a man, then I will be safe. Maybe this is something that is subconscious, happens on the subconscious of the child,
Yeah.
and then become questioning their gender, or confusion. I'm not saying that this is it, but this is something that needs to perhaps be considered,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there is this, again, I've seen thousands and thousands of people in the community,
Hmm.
and more often than not, there's some sort of sexual trauma, because
Right.
we know how much actual sexual abuse there is actually happening. There's so many children experiencing this in some sort. Uh, anyway, so I just thought that this is
Hmm.
something that
Hmm.
we need to maybe put a little bit of, shed some light on, because
Yeah.
to not um, shove this on the back, because this could be something,
So
for
it's so
people.
it's so important to go and do some healing. I think healing, there's psychology, psychiatrists, and there's
Yes.
holistic ways and alternative way of dealing with these kind of problems that helps the person really evolve as a spiritual being. Everything has to be
Yes.
integrative, and
Yes.
and I think that the holistic way of an approach of doing this work is so important because it helps the child.
Absolutely.
I mean, a
Absolutely.
child that has suffered trauma at that level, it can be even repressed. So there's some mechanisms
Yes.
that are coping mechanisms installed to not be dealing with this, and they don't even know that this had happened. And then later
Hmm.
on, but all the confusion and the sexual confusion comes later on in adolescent years, that creates all these different problems. So
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, I've noticed that myself on many people. When we deal with most of, as a shaman, as a healer, most of the problems that a person experiences happen in the first 7 years of their life. That time of the person is so crucial. And
Hmm.
when there is trauma and hurts at that level, when a child is being terrorized and is sexually molested at that time, the child also creates a dissociation and a mechanism that is leaving the body, is fainting, And once the child faints and leaves the body, it leaves the body unattended. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when these entities are brought in. You know, the person that's doing these acts, you know, is already in connection with the dark. Unfortunately, that's what it is.
Yes.
They can be knowingly doing it because they have a pact with the dark, or unknowingly. But whenever they project and they do these acts, they are transferring, they are making a bridge to bringing in this dark entity into that child. And that's what we deal with, exorcising, getting this entity out of the child. It's so important. It's so important. So I'm really glad that you brought it and to the conversation, because it's important to know. And again, many people are very unique. Everybody is unique. Not everybody
Yes.
has this kind of experience.
No.
And you know, not a lot of people have trauma, sexual trauma as a childhood,
Yeah.
early childhood, maybe later on, and there's confusion
Yes.
that can happen. No,
Yes. Yes.
uh,
Yeah, this is something very like this is like as you said, this is not every situation. This is just everybody has different experiences, and it's important to
yeah,
not not criticize all the experiences,
right,
including that this the people who experience this where this is a trauma response to them, you know,
right.
and
So, would you
it's
say on the people that you know that are trans, if you were talk about a percentage, what would you say that they had sexual abuse? Would you say?
the ones that I've been encountered, and I mean when I began this journey, the to
Yeah,
transitioning, it was the community was big on YouTube. So I met many people. We made videos on YouTube,
yeah,
and I was also part of support groups and
yeah.
everything. And I would say a good 80, if not more, percent.
80%, 80%.
Yes, yes,
And it was always a family member or the neighbor across the street
yes,
or some caretaker,
yes.
perhaps some teacher,
Somebody they trusted. Yes,
somebody that they trusted. That
yes,
is that is really sad. So that's it's so important to be watchful, right? To
yes,
parents are good parents or whatever, trustful to look at the different people that come into their homes and schools and all of that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So let's go with another question in here. Were you
Sure.
ready emotionally and spiritually when you did your surgery at 27? No.
I I was beginning, which is kind of funny because they kind of intertwined around the same time.
Okay.
When my spiritual journey began uh, in 2012, and when I started medically transitioning was in 2013. So
2013. Okay.
yes, it's I was beginning the journey because everything I was trying, I had realized that at this point, at 24 years old, I had realized that nothing was working. You
Okay.
know, I had been in therapy, and this is something that I want to touch on quickly, is that,
Okay.
you know, therapy, for me, the importance of spiritual healing
Okay.
is out of this world, because I started therapy very, very young.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that therapy is not good, but I think that we need both.
Yeah.
And the importance of the spiritual aspect is beyond important. And if we could merge both, it would be
Hmm.
extremely beneficial, because for me, I went to therapy and I seen many therapists. And by the end of it, because I started so early that I knew exactly what they wanted to hear to get exactly what I wanted from them, you
Okay.
know. So this is how I ended up with hormones, because I knew how to manipulate the system, and that is not good,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know. So it's the aspect is of the soul is what is very important. So I had done the therapy, I had done the addiction, I had done all these things, I had came out as lesbian, nothing was helping. So I thought I might as well finally listen to this calling that
Hmm.
I felt a pull all my life.
Yeah.
And I said, it's time for me to listen. And
Hmm.
so it kind of happened at the same time, but I was very early in my spiritual walk when I started doing the transition. But
Okay. And you
when I
you
had my,
started doing that transition by started to communicating how you were feeling. That's what you meant when you said 13 years old. You were talking to your psychologist. You were having therapy. That's when you were.
I started therapy around 7 or 8 years old because again, I was a
Okay.
very sensitive child and I was very fearful and
Okay.
anxiety. There was all those things. So
Hmm.
that's when I started, but
Yeah.
it just snowballed into I just needed more things because I started depression very early, substance abuse, self-harm, and all those things. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just therapy carried on for the rest of my adolescence going into adulthood.
And therapies that you were seeing when you were talking about the cutting and self harm and burning,
Hmm.
they wouldn't talk about the possibility of an entity or anything like that.
No,
That's not part of their scientific way of seeing these
no,
experiences, even though it's very common that people do the same things,
yes, no. And I was put on medication
Right,
very early on. And,
right,
because there seemed to be no other way. So they
right,
put me on medication, which
right.
numbed me out more than anything. Mixed with the substance abuse,
Yeah,
I was just a walking zombie, honestly.
yeah, that's really sad. I think that's extremely sad.
Yeah.
In your process of transformation,
Hmm.
when I first met you,
Hmm.
you said that you came out as a lesbian. I think that's when I
Yes,
met you. You have a
yes,
little
yes,
more of a shave look. You were a little more chunky as well.
yes. I was 100 pounds heavier too.
My goodness, yeah,
Yeah.
and I could notice that the energy that you had at that time, you were very masculine as a female, and
Yes.
which was very striking, which I have learned to to decipher that there was somebody in your body at that time that was not you. That's my
Hmm.
that's my feeling interpretation.
Yes.
I don't know if you felt the same way.
Well, at that time I was still on medication. I was just so lost.
Yeah,
You know, I was so lost, but now I look back.
yeah,
Now I can look back and I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I know the difference. I know the difference. And I was also trying to play this role, you know. I was trying to play a role
The macho man.
and yes, macho man. And that carried on until the beginning of my uh transition as well when I started taking male hormones and um getting the surgeries.
Hmm.
I was playing this macho man as well, and it was extremely exhausting
Okay,
until,
okay.
oh, it was so, because I was going so against myself. I was going against myself,
Hmm.
and the more I worked on myself and with you and Janice
Yeah,
and did so much healing, I was finally able to get to the root cause of things. I'm still very much working on it, but at least I know where to look now. But
yeah.
yes, it was the it was really side by side. My physical transformation with my spiritual transformation were going side by side, which I'm very grateful for. And it was actually a blessing
Hmm.
because I was able to learn many things along the way that
Hmm.
if I would not have had the spiritual aspect of it, I would probably still be very lost because I learned the hard way that you can change all the physical aspects that
Hmm.
you want.
Right.
It's not going to do anything until you go inwards.
And again, I praise your determination and your efforts. I know how hard you have worked in diet. I know how hard you have worked to be sober, and it's quite. I want to give you a lot of credit for that,
Thank
because
you.
I know we've seen you in your process of
Yeah.
transforming physically and changing who you are right now, but we also see how you have conquered yourself in the many aspects, right? The drugs, the alcohol, and other things, and other addictions that
Yeah.
we know, right? And you conquered, and you also know that all of those addictions were opening the door for these entities to return.
Oh,
And so for you have been a
yes.
big fight to keep yourself in check. So you know
Yes.
that if you kept yourself in check in that way, you wouldn't open the doors for these entities to come in.
Yes. And it
And
took many years.
that's remarkable.
Oh,
Remarkable.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us about a little more about your process? How did it go from one thing to another to the person that you are right now? Can you tell us a little bit of your life story? We kind of touch upon many things, but if you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about that.
Which aspect, like,
How was your
specific?
process, your physical process, the changes? When did you decided that you wanted this change, and
Okay.
going to talk to a doctor for getting informed about what it will take to get all these physical changes in your body? And were
Okay.
they
Yes.
easy? Were they difficult? Were they hard? Are they still hard? What is it?
Okay.
Because I
That is a
think
good question.
people need to know what it means to when you change your physical body, what that entails, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So for me, uh, it started with, I was dating men up until my early 20s. And then that's when I came out as a lesbian. I started dating women, and
Mhm.
I was still presenting very female. I was more like a tomboy, but I was still
Right.
and then it just gradually started going more to the masculine route, um, slowly, in up until I was again 24 years old, 2010, and I was miserable. I was still miserable, and I thought I had one of my friends. We would get drunk, and I would tell him like, I'm still so miserable. There's just something not right. And he showed me a video on YouTube of this person transitioning, getting the surgery, the chest surgery. And I
Okay.
thought, this must be it. This must be my next step, because nothing else seems to work. So I need to do another physical thing. So I started to go into the process of this, and I learned, in New Brunswick, it was not very easy, and it was not very, it was back then, you would think it was not that long ago. It's only 2010, but it was still
Mhm.
very hard to transition in New
Right.
Brunswick.
Hmm.
So I talked to my doctor, which she referred me to a psychiatrist. So when I got assigned to my psychiatrist, I learned that I needed to do 2 years of therapy. And I was also assigned a psychologist extra to work on my case.
Okay.
So they were making me jump through hoops. But as I told earlier, I knew how to manipulate the system. And if you go on YouTube, you
Mhm.
know, people share their stories and they tell you how
Yeah.
exactly what to say and what they want to hear in order to get. So even though I was very confused, and I had just previously learned 2 months ago about, I didn't know that women could transition into men to at 24. I still didn't know.
Okay.
I was like, this is it. This is so what do I need to convince the psychiatrist to sign me a letter to give me hormones?
Hmm.
So for the next 2 years, he was making it very difficult for me to get this. And as I was going, he was not very convinced. He was trying to, almost, back then I was looking at it as trying to make me back out, because he was like, if you transition into a man, no woman will ever love you. You don't have a penis and all those things. And I was like, "Ooh, this guy is not nice, man. He's making me feel really bad about myself and giving me dysphoria and all these things." And Anyways, I decided New Brunswick was not going fast enough for me. So I moved across the country.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah, I moved across the country. And I thought, here, they're more progressive, they're bigger cities. This is going to work out. And it was like not working out. So I decided to look at alternative ways. I went and found drug dealers and found my testosterone on the street. So I
Wow.
did that for a little bit, and there was something telling me that I shouldn't, because I didn't know what I was injecting into my body.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I was coming back to New Brunswick on the other side, and I was going to see my doctor. And I said, what I'm going to do, I'm going to do my research, and I'm going to convince her that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to get what I want. So I did my research. I knew
Mm-hmm.
the exact dosage. I get to my doctor. I said, "Oh, by the way, I was prescribed this, but this type of testosterone makes me gain weight. So I need the other one. This one doesn't make you gain weight." This is, yeah, no problem. She hands me over, and she had seen that I was starting to change. So it was
Change.
obvious that I was on testosterone, yes, but
Yeah.
because I was taking the drug from the street drugs.
Right.
So just like this, I knew exactly what they needed to hear. And that's the scary part,
Mm-hmm.
So in 2 years, it became very easy and it became more known. So, if
Mm-hmm.
you, that's how it began for me. I've seen quickly, you can not only because of the information on the internet,
Yeah.
you can convince doctors and psychiatrists to give you what you want. That's the power of the internet. That's almost kind of scary. But anyway, so for me, that's when it went. I was on hormones for a little bit. Then I started changing and looking like in what people called in between. So
Okay.
I started to present more masculine
Mm-hmm.
and also feminine, and I started being self-conscious about my chest. So then proceeded to get my chest surgery. I was 8 months on testosterone when I got my chest surgery. I just had to pay $10,000 and
Mm-hmm.
I could get my chest. Uh, that stayed for a little bit. I got my chest surgery. I was okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I did not feel comfortable, and I regret many things. Well, regret, I've learned to accept my journey, but there's many things that I was kind of regretting. My chest surgery was not one of them.
Okay.
And then I started to doing more healing work,
Mm-hmm.
and getting rid of, I got off my antidepressants and started working more with healing. And I started questioning some things, but I was kind of stuck in, did I do the right decision? Should I proceed? There were some things that I felt was wrong and I should stop, but I was so caught up and I'm already in this, I can't stop. I've gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone too far.
Okay.
And then I got my last surgery in 2016, and this one took
Mm-hmm.
me for a loop, and it was my hysterectomy, removing my reproductive system.
Yeah.
This one was not a good idea. And
What?
I knew, intuitively, I knew I shouldn't get it.
Mm-hmm. And
That,
why is that? Why?
why did I know?
Yeah.
My body told me I'm going to. So because I was on testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
I had no more periods.
Okay.
And I had a very strange experience. I went to go see my surgeon to get this surgery, and I had
Mm-hmm.
this gut feeling that I shouldn't do it, but I just no, just go through with it, go through with it. So I went to see the surgeon. A few weeks later, he calls me and he gives me the surgery date. He said, "You're getting your hysterectomy on December 13th." So I had 1 month.
And it's a
And
Friday.
yeah, and I hung up the phone, and I had one of the weirdest experiences of my life.
Really?
I felt like my reproductive system was its own. I was outside of my body. It was like it
Mm-hmm.
became manifested into its own entity, and it was speaking to me, and it started crying, and it was telling me, why are you rejecting me?
Mm.
Why are you throwing me in the garbage as if I am nothing?
Mm-hmm.
And I started bleeding. I had not bled in 4 years,
Wow.
and I started bleeding, and I could feel my reproductive system's pain, that I was just throwing it in the garbage as if it
Wow.
was nothing.
My God.
And I should have listened to myself,
Yeah, it was
but I,
your feminine side, huh?
yeah, the creative center. It's
Yeah.
my creative center, not just to create humans, but that is the center for you create, and
Mhm.
I just threw it in the garbage as if it was nothing. My femininity, my connection to myself, and I should have listened, and I didn't, and that was probably the hardest life lesson I had to, because I went into major depression. I gained a bunch of weight. I relapsed. I had been sober for 5 years.
Mm.
I relapsed. I gained 50 pounds. I was a mess, I felt completely disconnected from my body, pure
Mm.
regret. And I had so much trouble. I knew one of my friends had this surgery 1 month later, and he was out of the hospital the next day. I was in the hospital for almost 1 week, and my recovery, I could not wear jeans for 2 years after, because my body was in complete shock.
Yeah.
So
Very difficult
lesson,
surgery. Very
yeah,
difficult recovering.
yeah, very difficult, especially when you're going against yourself and you know you're going against yourself.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I had to go back to therapy, because I
Yeah.
was so, and it was mourning a loss. I was grieving a loss. So I had to uh, go into the steps of grief, because it was like a part of me died,
Right.
and I
Right.
killed myself.
Mm. Mm. So yeah, it's amazing how it's not an easy transitioning. It's complicated. People that do that need so much support, so much
Mhm.
healing, so much. Yeah, I can feel you when you're telling all these things. I can definitely physically feel you how complicated it was, because I know we did healing work, but we didn't talk. I personally didn't talk about this with you in
Yeah.
the times that I saw you, right? Uh,
Hmm.
wow, wow,
Yeah. So this is something that you had also asked me, if it's easy now, easier than when I began. This
yeah,
is what actually scares me for the children now. It's
hmm,
how easy you can get surgery, how easy you can get testosterone. You can just sign away, and so they don't even have time to think or heal or do anything, because now, if this is what scares me, it's how easy you can
yeah,
do something
hmm,
so drastic.
right, right,
I was an adult and decided this at 24 years old, 27 years old, 30, 29 years old, all my surgeries. And
right.
I still was really screwed up of my decision. So imagine a child.
Can you
This is
imagine that?
important.
It's extremely important. I think that people are. I don't know. There's an agenda, no? It's not only here in Canada. It's in the United States. It's in Peru. It's in Europe. In many places, it's kind of like they're pitching this self confusion or self these surgeries on people, and I think that most of the people that are being pushed, it's becoming like a business for many doctors to perform these surgeries, and they get paid really good. So I think that is very important for doing that spiritual assessment. No, see if your
Definitely.
child has entities, see if that child have
Yeah.
been sexually abused, because when a child is sexually abused, the entities have an open door to get in and possess that child, and then that entity start manipulating the desires the sexual desires of the child, and then that whole confusion is there and is almost irreversible, right? Because when the desires are there and when the sexual experiences are there, it's difficult to go back, to go back to being a normal child. So there is a lot to be done spiritually and psychically and psychologically before these surgeries can be done. I mean, where
Mhm.
you say, I was born into a different body, I was a child, and I
Yeah.
have no sexual abuse, I have nothing of that. There was not no entities that jump on me and had sex with me while I was growing up. So I'm clear.
Mhm.
I came into the wrong body. I want to be a man, right? That is a very clear subject, I would say, that will be ready for a surgery like this, and vice versa
Mhm.
in the other sex, right? But
Mhm.
there's so much. I mean, right now, these agendas are being promoted at school. What do you think about the no
Mhm.
gender thing, the EAT kind of thing promoted at school? Do you think the kids are ready for that?
No, no. Children are meant to play and be children. There's no need for that. In First of all, that's the parents' decision when it's time to do this. This not the I
The goal,
understand that not it's not the government's or the school's job to do that.
right?
And I feel that people, parents, people in general are being judged if they're questioning any of this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're being called bigots. Doctors are being harassed, psychiatrists are being harassed. People are they're being harassed and threatened with their life and being attacked because they're questioning this stuff. This
Mm-hmm.
is to protect the children.
Exactly.
This is very serious, and I'm not saying that there's not people who are really born in the I'm not saying that. Do I believe that percentage is that big?
Mm-hmm.
No, no. And this is what really scares me, is for the children.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to right now, this agenda is being pushed so hard on people who are, and so many people are lost and confused. And this is being pushed so hard, harder than ever. And what's going to happen is that we're going to see the repercussions of this in 15 years, in 20 years. What's going to happen?
What do you think will
It's,
happen?
People are going to be, because as we are evolving, we are growing we are connecting more and more spiritually. And when
Mm-hmm.
people are going to start doing their inner work, or they're going to have some sort of crisis because they're still not fixed, you know, they're going to start looking like me at other ways.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen is that, people are going to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be people who are going to be going at their parents and saying, "What did you do?
Do you think they're
What
gonna
did you
sue?
do?"
They're gonna sue the parents? You
They're going to
know,
sue their parents. There's going to break the connection with their parents.
right?
How did you let me do this? Your job was to protect me. And
Exactly.
it's hard for the parents because it's almost damned if you do, damned if you don't, because they're
Exactly.
being pushed and they're being called bigots or this and that if they, you're abusing your child if you don't, but then if you do, you're abusing your child. So I can't I empathize for the parents because this is a very hard
Decision.
situation to be,
Yeah, the decision
because
situation.
decision, of course, you want to do what's right for your child. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that before going and mutilating your child's body, or you know medically castrating them, putting them on hormone blockers, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important that you look at other ways, and not just therapy, because and this is not, I'm not criticizing therapy, it's helped me in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to look at the alternative ways as well, and that is spiritual, the soul, what could be happening. And we can,
Exactly.
once everything is ruled out, the child has grown up, they can make their own decision, but that is not your body to decide what you're going to do.
What do you think is a good age for somebody that wants to make a transition to start that process, or what? What do you think would be the ideal? Because the child is still under the parents up to the teenage years,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and honestly, in your 20s,
Your
I
20s.
have to be honest, because
Yeah.
you're not, you know, until you're really an adult, even in your late teens, like close to your 20s,
Mhm.
you think you know it all,
Right.
and we make decisions that, when we look in our later in life, we look and we're like, oh my God, when I was 20, when I was 22, I did all these things. These
Yeah.
are irreversible. I
Exactly.
cannot go back.
Right.
I tried to go back. I can't.
Joey, if how old are you right now?
I'm 34.
34. If you were to get that choice right now and say, hey, you want to go trans and you want to change your body, and I'm asking you that question right now at 34, with the experience that you have, will you do it?
Mhm. No,
You wouldn't do it.
there's only one
Okay.
thing that I'm certain that I would do, and this is
Okay.
again my own personal choice, my own personal journey.
Hmm.
My breast.
Okay. You will
That's
have
the
to
only
remove your
thing.
breast.
That's the only thing I felt complete. I felt good about it. I never
Yeah.
regretted that for 1 second. Not for 1 second in my life. I've never regretted.
Okay.
Hormones, I went back and forth on this many times, and I am still going back and forth on this. I'm
Yeah.
not saying
Yeah.
it's over, because I made a decision that is for life now. I
Hmm.
cannot go back. So
Okay.
now I'm trying to make peace with my decisions and accept me,
Right.
myself for who I am now, and accept, listen, I cannot go back.
Hmm.
I made this choice, but if I could go back, I would not get my hysterectomy. I would not go on testosterone, because I also feel it's has not just the testosterone, but my hysterectomy. It's I was a lot more connected. I've and I feel I have a harder time tapping into my gifts
Okay.
and my sensitivity, because I'm taking
Yeah.
I'm taking pharmaceuticals that are
Yeah. Blocking that.
blocking me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you are a very unique individual. I think you make tremendous progress in your life. The spirituality has given you a big niche inside and calmness and perspectives of life. You are a
Oh yes.
person that can see life from many places, from a male perspective, from a female perspective,
Hmm.
and regardless if you don't have that womb, I think that you have that level of femininity, that you are very intuitive, receptive,
Yes.
and connected at that level, even though you might still are coming into terms on that surgery, that piece of surgery that you did, that was like, oh, I got rid of my creative. I think that
Hmm.
you're very creative, where you're very
Yeah.
artistic, very colorful,
Yeah.
and you bring so much to the table for many people. There's so much joy when we are with you, and when we have your opinions and your interactions, and they're colorful. You're colorful,
Yeah.
and, and you are very happy, and very, you bring so much to the table for many people on the many workshops and groups that we've done, going to Peru, and it's Joey, and you're very theatrical, and you have many talents in the way that you connect and help people, bring that little child as well, because you have a very strong child, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
So any recommendations that you will have for parents, right? Because parents are being threatened right now, with this agenda that is coming through the schools of no
Mm-hmm.
gender, of calling your kid an it, and all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
What can you recommend parents, under this situation? Because there's a lot of peer pressure right now coming from the
So
schools.
much. So much peer pressure. They're being threatened with getting their child removed if they don't
Yeah,
go with this is crazy times in many aspects. This is crazy
yeah,
times.
yeah.
But listen to your intuition. Listen to your
Right.
intuition. You know as a parent what's best to do. And we all there's no judgment if you decide that what's best for your child, but you have to look at this, what's going to hinder more your child, doing this or taking the time and going to seek out alternative ways, perhaps more holistic approaches to see? There's no harm in trying that. At least you can
Exactly.
try to rule it out. Do your best, but I honestly, I'm very sad for the parents right now because it's a tough spot to be in. But you need to do what's best for your child, even though if that's going against it. You know deep down, just like I knew deep down, and I didn't listen to myself. My parents, they had raised me. I did my own choices. That's not on my parents. So
Exactly.
if your child still chooses to do that, there's their path. And it's not saying that they're going to regret it. That's
Hmm.
not it at all. They may not, but you don't know that. So you need to do what's best for your child, even if that child is going to kick and scream and, you don't understand me, you don't love me. Actually, they might thank you later because in 20 years, maybe that decision, they're going to be like, listen, thank you so much for keeping me intact and
Right.
protecting me. They might believe you're not protecting them right now, but again, it goes for every situation is different. You need to go what's best for you, but I would suggest looking at my other options instead of just handing it to a psychiatrist, handing it look at try to do some soul work for your child to
Yes.
see some.
And for parents, right?
Yeah.
Adolescence years is not easy,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of there's a sexual orientation
Yeah.
problem, regardless if there's an identity problem, regardless of if the kid is into drugs, regardless of whatever. Adolescence is not easy for any parent. Jumping into an agenda that is created by a government, and not only by a government of Canada or the United States, there is a plot. It feels like there is an agenda. This is happening in Peru. The non-gender that eats, having no identity, growing with no identity. I mean, I want to be proud of who I am. I'm a male. I am a proud male. I'm a proud, balanced male within my masculine and my feminine, you know. And if you were a woman, you would be, I'm a proud woman. I'm a goddess. I'm a goddess woman, and I'm proud to be like that in my
Mm-hmm.
masculine, my feminine. Everybody should be proud of who they are. And if they are a lesbian or whatever they are, they should be proud of who they are,
Mm-hmm.
proud of their choices. But literally, those are their choices.
Yes, it's their
One of the
choices.
things that I remembered from one of my nieces, my sister's daughter, and she's an individual. She's on her sex and being a woman and a happy woman and everything. But one of the things that she said to my sister was, Mom, I am so happy that you were very structured. That's exactly what I needed. I needed somebody to create a structure for me because I was like here and there, and I needed structure, and you provided that for me. So I complained, I did this, I did that, but when I look back and I see the level of structure and guidance that you did, that you encouraged and guided me in my life, I am so grateful because I could have gotten anybody, not talking about my niece, but anybody, we all could have gotten so lost within all the different trends because things become trendy, right? And I only see, and I have nothing against the LGBT community or anything like that, but I also see that there are so many human traffickers, sexual traffickers, all of this stuff, and these children become prey for all these dirty, corrupted, degenerated human beings that go in looking for young adolescents that are confused in these LGBT communities to suck them in into sexual trafficking, to suck them in into exploiting them with pornography and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
parents also need to know this because parents, they say, well, there's a my kid has an identity crisis, doesn't know if it's a boy or a girl, you know, and they need to know what is also there and with all these agendas that are promoted, because these are promoted and created by someone. I haven't identified who is promoting this it agenda or no gender agenda, but I know that they are promoting that because they are sourcing and looking for children. They are looking for children. So parents, be aware. I am really happy that they are the bear parents are getting together and they are fighting for this level. I mean, a child shouldn't be exposed to this sexual orientation that early. They need to be kids, as you well were saying. They need to be
Yeah,
played.
they need to be kids.
They need to be innocent. They need to be
Yeah,
innocent, right?
yeah, yeah. And yeah, and the thing is, with the whole my views on this, the whole LGBT, the intention originally I think was good. I mean, people, even in adolescence, they want to explore their sexuality. That's okay. But when there's something that's good intention is being hijacked and
Exactly.
there becomes an agenda. It's
Hmm.
so it's we're not bashing the LGBT. That's not it. It's what's hijacking this movement and pushing an agenda that's very perverse and that's very corrupt, and that is what's grabbing the children.
Exactly.
And
So I think it's great to find small independent groups, right, of
yes,
friends that are going through
yes,
these processes, and find small communities instead of going into the big thing that, it's amazing when these labels come in, right? LGBT, so it becomes a label.
yeah,
And you know that
yeah,
somebody created it, and they start instilling it, and they start manipulating. It's like there are groups of people that are sourcing and harvesting on wounds of communities, be it that is racial, be it that
mm-hmm,
is ethnic, be it is that is sexual. I mean, be it
mm-hmm.
that is spirituality. There
Yes,
are groups that form these labels to manipulate and direct and and take advantage by putting everybody together and start sourcing from all these people whatever they are looking for. So
yes,
my really recommendation to parents is that really investigate, go deeper. And also, I have a recommendation for school teachers. If you have a gut feeling that this is not right, stand for it and say, no, I'm not promoting this agenda. If you're a teacher and you have a big heart and you are aligning with whatever Joe is saying, what I'm saying, right? Come together with some of the good teachers. Come together. I'm not saying that you're a bad teacher. Just come together with the other teachers that have a gut feeling where this is not feeling right, and come together and question it, and talk to people like Joey. Why don't you talk to people like Joey? People that are trans, that start learning from their experience, start bringing all the joys that they are there into the classroom, and talk about this for all these adolescent children that are confused. You need to question this agenda. You need to really bring the experts. For me, the experts are not so much the psychologists, psychiatrists, or even me, holistic people, but the people that have experienced this in their lives.
mm-hmm,
What is it? They Joey and a lot of the trans friends can bring so much light into understanding this gender thing.
yeah. And that's the thing. I've been asked to go into schools and talk about it, but my views on it is not what they want to hear. So when they find out I'm not going to promote this
Exactly.
and be like, yes, yes, mutilate your child.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. They don't want to hear from me.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part, is that not every person, you need to do the work. You need to work on yourself so then, because that's where I got to where I am. I'm not saying I'm more enlightened than somebody, but I'm just saying that my experience is different. And
Mhm.
there are other people who had different experiences, and they're not going to promote things like this or give another side, because at the end of the day, what's right for somebody else is not my decision. I just need to explain what happened to me and my perspective on it. But it's
Mhm.
important for this perspective to also have a
Be
voice.
heard. Exactly.
Exactly, because
Exactly.
then you know that some people might, I found some subreddits on Reddit of people who are detransitioning, and they're saying we are not, we're very well accepted because we're giving the trans community a bad rep. No, this is an actual thing. Some people regret this, you know. This is, people need to hear this side of it, and it's okay. It's okay if you are regretting or this was not the right decision, you know. It's
Right.
okay. But we children and parents need to know this as
Mhm.
well.
Yes.
So
Just a quick last question. What do you think about being an it? Them it. What do you think
yeah,
about having an identity? I mean, where do you know, you are Joey,
yeah,
right?
I'm Joey, and that's the thing.
You're
Yeah,
very
you know,
unique.
you,
Joey is
yeah,
very unique. You
yeah,
know, can you allow
yeah.
anybody call you it,
No,
or
no,
refer to you as an
yeah,
it? You're so
yeah,
freaking
no.
special, Joey Maillet.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's depersonalizing the human experience and who
Exactly.
we are, you know, it's just making it so uh it's attacking our worthiness also on a subconscious level, on a soul level, you know. We might think, oh, it's not a big deal, it's just a word. Words carry energy, and you know, so I think that,
Exactly.
and there's nothing wrong, like you were saying, you know, you're proud to be a man and everything. Well, I am proud of who I am, and I'm kind of,
In
I'm
between.
flowy in the in between, and that's okay. I'm a soul
That's
in a human body that's, you know, presenting as masculine, but I'm also,
yes.
I had to learn to accept my feminine side, and that's okay. But we are not its, we are not its, you know, and you need to love yourself. You're more than an it.
Yeah. Listen,
Yeah, I
Joey,
don't believe in that.
I love you, man. To me, you're my
I love you
brother.
too.
You're my brother, and you're awesome. You're really awesome. And I think that this show, there's so much and so much deepness to go into this show, into this
Mm,
subject. I really want to encourage you to come for a next time. We'd love to do a
for
next and go
sure,
deeper with this and bring
for sure.
some really real facts into our conversation. Will be great for to
Yeah.
helping parents, helping school teachers. I mean, this is what people really need to hear, this voice,
Mhm.
right? Because the other voice, the other agenda being promoted, like, okay, let's have all these children, not have children because they're changing sexes and have
Yeah.
no children. I mean, is there something else behind all this nonsense? You
Hmm.
know, we need to really, really go deeper with this and what else is
Yes.
there, right?
Yeah.
I really thank you, Joey, for coming on board. And I send so much love to you to find the right partner in your life. You know, you have so much to offer. You are such an amazing human being,
Thank you.
and I know that you would love to have a female partner,
Yes.
and I think that females. I mean, this guy is amazing. I mean, you can go beyond some body parts. This guy is unbelievable, has an amazing heart. I know how you are with children, how you are with animals, and how sensitive you are. And it brings so much beauty, so much listening and understanding to relationship. I mean, any woman up there that, this guy is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Highly,
Oh man.
highly recommend Joey Maye. I love you, Joey. I love
I love
you.
you too. Thank you so much.
And big blessings to you and good luck in your future. You're always welcome to come back to the program, New Earth Radio. And we are all unique and so special. And we are part of this big new earth that we are creating. And there's a space for everybody, for
That's
everyone.
right. That's right.
Bring your secondness, bring your song, your ideas, your creativity, and we are all happy. We are all part of this big family, and we are unique with who we are, and we all bring something very special to the creation of the new earth. So thank you, Joey, and we'll see you again. God
All right,
bless you.
blessings to everybody. Bye bye.
Blessings, blessings. Bye bye.